Welcome back to Make Stuff Break Stuff. Today I'm going to show you how to make some truly amazing barbecued baby back ribs.
We're going to cook them sous vide and finish them off on a grill.
Now I'm going to be making 6 racks of ribs for a friend's barbecue this weekend. So we're going to need a larger sous vide setup than normal. Most people will just use a sous vide circulator and a pot on a counter or a stove. But for 6 racks of ribs you need something a little larger. I've taken a cooler, cut a hole in the top, and then used that for my sous vide circulator. I've also used a towel to seal it off. It prevents extra heat from escaping and prevents condensation from coming out. As you can see, we have the water bath preheating. We have the water filled between the min fill and max fill lines on the sous vide circulator. We've also accounted for the displacement of the ribs that we'll be adding. While the water bath warms up, let's talk target temperatures. Modernist Cuisine's kitchen manual recommends for pork ribs that are tender and yielding a target temperature of 60 degrees Celsius. For tender and flaky ribs, they recommend 65 degrees, and for very flaky ribs, they recommend 75 degrees. It also notes that you're supposed to set your water bath temperature to 1 degree Celsius above your target temperature. I've chosen 63 degrees just out of personal preference because I like mine to be between tender yielding and tender flaky. On this particular circulator, you set your target temperature by pressing the target button on the top and then rotating this ring to set your temperature. We have a target set of 63 degrees Celsius. For cooking times, Modernist Cuisine recommends 48 hours in your water bath. Personally, I've seen people use as much as 76 hours or as few as 12 to 24. But I think 48 hours definitely is the sweet spot. Now let's look at our raw materials. We've got 3 packs of baby back ribs. They're nice and meaty. They come 2 racks to a pack, so that gives us our 6 total. We're gonna let these thaw. The best way to thaw them safely is in the refrigerator over a couple of days, or you can thaw them more quickly by running them underwater in the sink. While the ribs are thawing, we'll get started on our dry rub. First ingredient, we're gonna go with a nice healthy dose of kosher salt. Don't forget to make a mess. Some dark brown sugar. Again, if you make extra rub, you can always save it for other recipes. A little bit of ground mustard, garlic powder, ground chipotle powder, paprika. Smoked paprika is even better. Some ground cayenne pepper for extra zing. Some rubbed sage. Don't forget some ground peppercorns. We need some more power. Should be good. You can mix it up with a whisk. Fork works well too. Also, we're going to grind up some fresh smoked cumin and some wild thyme and maybe a little rosemary. Make quick work of that. Now, a lot of getting this dry rub right is just tasting it for the flavor profile that you prefer. Some people like a sweeter dry rub, other people like a saltier, more savory dry rub. I like something somewhere in the middle. And then a lot of the flavor from this goes into the final homemade barbecue sauce we'll be making. So that's why I tend to use a little more sugar, because I like a sweeter barbecue sauce. Pretty good on the salt sugar balance. Nice hint of the garlic in there. I think we'd go for a little more of the peppery flavor. We got some more chipotle powder. When you're adding the ground pepper, or the ground paprika and chipotle, you'll actually see a change in the color. It'll turn more red with the more chipotle and paprika that you add. You'll see you get a nice even distribution of spices, salt flakes, sugar, and the different peppers. And don't forget to taste it. Yeah, I think that's about the perfect balance of spiciness, saltiness, and sugar. We'll set that aside. When you're sous videing things, you either need to put your food in a zip top bag or vacuum seal it. That prevents the water from soaking into your food while it cooks, and it also helps keep contamination out. Since these ribs are going to be in the sous vide for 48 hours, I prefer to use vacuum sealer. You don't need a chamber vacuum sealer like they use at grocery stores. You can just use a cheap home regular vacuum sealer. They work just fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to prep all our bags, because once we take these ribs out of their store packaging, we want to make sure we keep everything as clean as possible while we get them ready before we vacuum seal them again. We're going to get a pack of ribs out here to measure. Now you want your vacuum sealer bags to be as long as your rack of ribs, plus a couple inches for the vacuum sealing machine to be able to do its work. You can cut these with a normal pair of scissors. Just make sure that you make a nice perpendicular cut across the bag. Now I'm going to put 2 racks of ribs in each bag, side by side. So I only need 3 bags for this particular batch. You can always trim these shorter just before you seal them, but it's always better to have them a little longer. That way you don't have to waste a bag for it being too short. We need to seal one end of them. Most home vacuum sealers work the same way. They have a sealing mechanism. You just lay the top of the bag in, close the sealer, press it closed, and then either push a button or press a bar down that causes it to seal the bag. You just hold the bar down until the light extinguishes. Release the locks, and if you can see it, you have a nice seal all the way across. There we go. We're all set to put the dry rub on our ribs and get them sealed up. Okay, we've got our rib prep station all set to go. We've got a pan to apply the rub to the ribs. We've got our vacuum sealer bags all set to go, along with the items we're going to add to the ribs. We're going to add some liquid smoke and some lemon juice. And then off to the left, we've got the vacuum sealer all set to seal the ribs. The main thing here is we're looking for is to make sure we're not cross-contaminating back between the ribs and our batch of dry rub, and keeping everything as food safe as possible. So we're going to open our first package of ribs, making sure not to get drips on the counter, and try to keep it isolated to the pan that we have prepared. You want to dispose of the packaging right away and make sure we're not contaminating anything in the kitchen. And then don't forget to wash your hands between steps. There's one thing that we do have to worry about. The silver skin on the ribs is definitely not good eats. There's a couple different ways to deal with it. You can rip it off by hand before cooking, or you can leave it on, and then when you're finishing them on the grill, a very hot, intense heat will cause the silver skin to kind of disintegrate. Also a hot broiler, if you're just using an oven to finish the ribs, will do the same thing. It's up to you what you want to do. I'm going to leave the silver skin on. I found that it cooks away just fine on the hot grill when I'm finishing the ribs, and it's more hassle than it's worth to remove it ahead of time. It also tends to help keep the ribs together, because these ribs are going to get so tender they're just going to want to fall apart. So it helps have a little bit of stability there. Now we're going to take a nice clean spoon, and we're just going to sprinkle dry rub liberally all over these ribs. If you touch the ribs with the spoon, don't put it back in your batch of dry rub, throw it in the sink, get a nice new clean spoon. Now what you want to do, as the name implies, you want to rub the dry rub into the ribs. You'll notice it should stick fairly well due to the moisture. Then flip them over. And wash your hands before we touch the clean dry rub. Alright, and now for the other side. And massage it in. This dry rub is going to combine with the juices from the ribs as they cook to make a really nice sauce, which we're going to cook down and make into a barbecue sauce, which we'll glaze the ribs with after we're finishing them on the grill. Just flip them to make sure there's still enough rub on the other side. Okay, now the tricky part. We need to transfer these inside our vacuum bag without getting rib juices and such all over the outside. I found the easiest way is to flip part of the bag inside out. And then you can gently lift the ribs and slide them into the bag. Then you can turn the bag right side out. And you know, you did it right. That side of the bag is nice and clean. We're going to set our rib tray aside, put the counter wipe down, and get ready to seal this bag. Again, I've washed my hands in between steps. Just make sure if you see any juices accumulating that you keep the open side of the bag up so they don't flow out all over the place and make a mess. Now what we're going to do, we're going to add a little bit of lemon juice, some liquid smoke, and then we're going to clean up the inside of the bag so we get a nice good seal. And just a little splash of liquid smoke. Now we're going to take our freshly washed scissors and trim the bag to a better length, making sure to keep a nice perpendicular edge. You take a clean paper towel and clean up the edges of the bag so that there aren't any contaminants where this vacuum sealer is going to seal the bag. If you have any little bits of spices or rub or moisture, the sealer won't work right and you'll have a leak, and you don't want that when the ribs are cooking. We're going to insert the bag per the instructions. This can be a little two-person job sometimes. Get close. Engage the locks on your vacuum sealer. We're going to let it pump all the air out. Sometimes it takes a few minutes, sometimes you need to help work the plastic around. The only thing you're watching for here is you want to make sure the vacuum sealer doesn't suck any juices up into the pump mechanism. So you can watch around the edges and then activate the sealing mechanism. Examine the seal. You should be able to see if there's any spots where it didn't seal tightly. And then you can hold it upside down. If it doesn't drip and it looks like it's keeping a nice airtight seal, you know you're good to go. That's one pack down, 2 to go. Well, there you have it. 1, 2, 3 packs of ribs ready to go in the sous vide. I'm going to throw them in tonight. They'll be in the sous vide for about 48 hours at 63 Celsius. And we'll take them out in a couple days to finish them. They should be nice and tender and well cooked. We'll save the leftover dry rub for another recipe. You'll see that the sous vide water bath is up to temperature. We are ready to put in the ribs.
This
this concludes part 1 of my barbecued ribs video. I'd like to thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe, because in part 2, I'm going to show you how to make a fantastic homemade barbecue sauce. We're going to glaze the ribs with that sauce and finish them on a grill.